Hey, this is your boy Kenneth Braswell, and you're listening to 5 Flow, 5 minutes of motivation and not much more. Hey, last week was the presidential debates, or the second of the presidential debates. And one of the questions that they asked, in fact, it was the first question that they asked of the candidates, whether or not they believed that their behavior was a behavior that was good for the public and for those who are watching, particularly for our youth. Neither one of them answered that question in a way that I thought was satisfactory. But it led me to begin to start thinking about this whole issue of integrity, right? And where we are in this country when it comes to being authentic and being who we're supposed to be and being who we say we are, right? And so particularly for our youth, right? And so this conversation around integrity is not only for adults, but it is beginning to start speaking in a way that our youth are also hearing messages that they need to hear from the mouths of adults, right? And I think one of the conversations that we need to begin to have is this conversation around integrity. And it's not just about talking about integrity, but it's also modeling integrity. And so there's 3 factors of integrity that I want to talk to you about today. The first factor is commitments. And so commitments to me means whether or not you as an individual is keeping your commitment to someone else. And so am I where I say I'm going to be when I say I'm going to be there? Am I going to do what I say I'm going to do for you when I say I'm going to do it? Can you rely on me? If I make a commitment to you, can I always stand on your word that you're going to follow through with your commitment? A person who doesn't follow through on their commitments lacks integrity. And so integrity, I believe, is one of the fundamental characteristics that an individual of honor should have. And so it is, can you keep your word? Is your word your bond, right? Are you who you say you are? If you keeping it real, are you real, right? And a lot of that comes in your ability to keep your commitment. The second factor is promises, right? And so when you promise something, can you actually deliver on your promise? Do you have the capability to deliver on your promise? Is your promise too big for you to deliver? Is it too small for you to really do or have an impact with your promise? I think a promise is a individual declaration of you saying that you're going to do something that typically doesn't have to be placed on paper, right? I think commitment is a little different. Commitments often happen when you put them on paper, if we just think about it very quickly in the sense of marriages, right? And so 2 people get married, they make a commitment to each other, and then there's a set of agreements that they have in place to then follow that commitment through. And when either or the other does not adhere to those commitments, then the marriage falls apart. It happens in business partnerships, it happens in friendships, it happens in all kinds of things. Because when we make commitments to each other, we also create expectations of each other. And I think promises are a little different. Promises are not so hard coded on paper. Promises that I promise I'm gonna pick you up tomorrow. If you're a father, I promise I'm going to pick you up and spend some time with you. If I'm a husband, I promise my wife I'm gonna be home early, or I make this promise that I'm never gonna make a mistake like this again. And I think oftentimes we just become so comfortable with breaking our promises. And you know, the number one person that we make promises to or break promises to is ourselves, right? We break promises to ourselves all the time. And New Year's resolutions are probably the number one time that we break a promise to yourself. But think about this for a minute. What is it when you can't make a promise to yourself and believe that you're going to carry through on your promise? What kind of life or existence must it be when you can't trust yourself? When you can't say something and actually believe it yourself? And then the third factor is agreements. And agreements is when 2 people or more make a declaration to adhere to a responsibility equally, and sometimes not equally, but fairly between 2 people. And so I make an agreement, or we make an agreement, and then we do X and then you do X. And oftentimes we break those agreements. And one of the best places you can see where agreements are made, think about your credit score, right? Every time that you get a credit card or you purchase something on credit, you make an agreement to pay your bill on a particular day at a particular time for a particular amount. And on any day and at any time that doesn't take place, then you've broken your agreement. And the more you break your agreement, your credit score begins to reflect that. So the next person only needs to see your credit score to determine the integrity that you have in keeping your agreements. And so I think that this is a perfect opportunity to start talking to our children about being able to steadfast to your commitments. When you make a commitment, adhere to that commitment. Be careful about the promises you make. Don't overpromise. Promise what you can deliver. Be mindful of promises. Be mindful of people who promise you things. And when you make an agreement and you sign on to agree to do something, and for our kids, you say you want to play football, you say you want to play basketball, but you don't want to practice, right? And so the agreement for a team, if you're on the team, then you got to do the things that not only will make you better, but the things that's going to make the team better. And so 3 factors of integrity: commitments, promises, and agreements. This is your boy Kenny Braswell. Make sure that you check us out on blaze1radio.com as well as Fly TV Fatherhood Today. And until next Monday, peace out.